Imagine this. You sit down at your desk full of determination. You tell yourself, today I'll finally finish that report, that presentation, that email I've been putting off. You open your laptop, your mind buzzing with intention. But before your fingers even touch the keyboard, your eyes drift to your phone. A quick glance at messages, then maybe one scroll through social media. Suddenly, 30 minutes are gone. The task is still untouched. Your energy feels lower than before you even started. And then, the guilt sets in. You think, why can't I just do it? What's wrong with me? If this feels familiar, you're not alone. This is procrastination, one of the most universal battles of the modern human mind. It drains time, erodes confidence, and makes even simple tasks feel overwhelming. But here's the truth. Procrastination is not about laziness, and it's not about lack of discipline. It's about how your brain is wired to perceive effort. And the most powerful way to beat it isn't through force, but through a simple psychological trick that makes effort look almost invisible. It's called the 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule is deceptively simple. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. And if a task feels too big to start, shrink it down to a version that takes just 2 minutes to begin. That's it. But beneath this simplicity lies a profound reprogramming of how your brain relates to work. Because procrastination thrives not on difficulty, but on perception. We procrastinate because the brain overestimates the pain of starting. It inflates the weight of the task into something threatening. The 2-minute rule slices through that illusion by lowering the entry barrier so dramatically that resistance has nothing to grab onto. It's like opening a heavy door not by pushing it all at once, but by first cracking it open with your fingertip. To really understand the power of this rule, let's frame it around a simple structure I call the 3 shifts of the 2-minute rule. These shifts are the mental transformations that turn procrastination into progress. First, the shift from avoidance to action. Second, the shift from friction to momentum. And third, the shift from outcome to identity. Each of these is like a lever. Once you pull them, you change the entire system of how you relate to tasks. Let's go deeper into each one. The first shift, from avoidance to action. Procrastination is an avoidance strategy. Your brain sees the task as a threat to comfort, so it chooses escape. But the 2-minute rule tricks your brain by offering such a tiny action that avoidance feels unnecessary. Instead of write the report, the action becomes open a blank document. Instead of go for a run, the action becomes put on running shoes. These actions are so small that the brain doesn't resist. And here's the key. Once you've begun, the mental state changes. Action generates energy. In psychology, this is called the Zeigarnik effect. Unfinished tasks create tension in the mind, and your brain naturally wants to resolve them. By starting, even with the smallest step, you trigger that tension in your favor. You've shifted from a state of paralysis to a state of motion, and that first motion is everything. The second shift, from friction to momentum. Think of procrastination as friction in your mental gears. The longer you hesitate, the heavier the task feels. But 2 minutes of action is enough to break static friction. Imagine a car stuck in the snow. If you push it even slightly, the resistance decreases and the wheels begin to turn. After that, it takes far less effort to keep the car moving. In the same way, once you've written the first sentence, the second one comes easier. Once you've washed one plate, you're more likely to finish the whole sink. The hardest part of any task is the first push. The 2-minute rule gives you that push automatically. And here's the hidden power. You often end up doing more than 2 minutes. Because the brain hates stopping mid-motion, you naturally keep going. 2 minutes of effort can transform into 30 minutes of flow, simply because you've crossed the threshold of starting. Momentum replaces friction, and suddenly the impossible feels natural. The third shift, from outcome to identity. Most people think of tasks in terms of outcomes. Finish the report, run 5 kilometers, clean the house. But outcomes are distant. They exist in the future, and that distance creates resistance. The 2-minute rule reframes tasks not as outcomes, but as identity confirmations. When you open the document, you are embodying the identity of someone who works on reports. When you lace your shoes, you are embodying the identity of a runner. When you tidy one corner, you are embodying the identity of a person who maintains order. And identity is far more powerful than outcome. Because every small action you take is a vote for the kind of person you want to be. This is why James Clear in his book Atomic Habits describes habits as identity-based. The 2-minute rule is essentially a doorway into that identity. It's not about finishing the task, it's about proving to yourself who you are. And once you see yourself differently, procrastination loses its grip. Now, let's pause for a moment and imagine how this could play out in your daily life. Think of one task you've been avoiding, maybe replying to an email, maybe organizing files, maybe starting a workout routine. Instead of staring at the whole mountain, ask, what is the 2-minute version of this task? Is it opening the email app, writing the first 3 words, doing 1 push-up? The moment you take that micro step, you've already won. Not because the task is done, but because you've broken the pattern of avoidance. And breaking the pattern is the real victory. You might be wondering, if it's this simple, why doesn't everyone already use it? The reason is that we tend to undervalue small actions. The human brain is wired to look for big solutions, dramatic changes, life overhauls. But in reality, behavior change happens through leverage points, not giant leaps. The 2-minute rule is one of those leverage points. It looks small, but it reshapes how you experience effort, which reshapes how you experience yourself. That is why it works. And once you trust the process, you'll notice that it not only reduces procrastination, but also builds consistency in every area of your life. To bring this to life, let me share a simple metaphor. Imagine your day as a row of dominoes. The first domino is the hardest to push because it starts the sequence. But once it falls, the others follow almost automatically. The 2-minute rule is the act of flicking that very first domino. You don't need to knock down all the dominoes at once. You just need to set the sequence in motion. And the beauty is that the first domino is always tiny, 2 minutes tiny. But the chain reaction it starts can be enormous. Think for a moment about how many times in your life you've stared at a mountain of a task and told yourself, I'll do it later. Later becomes tomorrow, tomorrow becomes next week, and soon the weight of that single undone task multiplies. It doesn't just sit on your to-do list, it drains energy from every corner of your mind. That's the hidden cost of procrastination. It's not just lost time, it's the mental tax of unfinished business. But here's the liberating truth. Every mountain can be broken down into a first step, and every first step can be made so small it feels almost laughable. That's the beauty of the 2-minute rule. It reframes mountains into pebbles, and when you realize you only ever need to move 1 pebble at a time, life becomes a lot lighter. Let's explore how you can weave this into your daily rhythm. Think of your day as a sequence of entry points, doors that lead either into procrastination or into progress. Each time you face a task, you stand before such a door. The 2-minute rule is the master key. You don't have to force the door open with willpower. You just insert this key and turn it. Can I make this task 2 minutes long? Becomes the single question that reshapes your day. And if the answer is yes, you do it now. If the answer is no, you shrink it down until it is. Over time, this question becomes automatic, like a reflex. You see an email. What's the 2-minute version? You want to work out? What's the 2-minute version? You need to clean. What's the 2-minute version? Each answer leads you to immediate action. And that action, repeated across dozens of small decisions, transforms your life. Now let's go back to the 3 shifts we uncovered. The shift from avoidance to action means you stop negotiating with yourself. You bypass the endless loop of should I, when should I, maybe later, and instead, you just begin. The shift from friction to momentum means you start to experience tasks not as heavy boulders, but as rolling wheels, gathering speed as you go. And the shift from outcome to identity means you stop chasing the finish line and instead embody the runner. You become the type of person who starts things easily, who doesn't let resistance dictate behavior. When you integrate these 3 shifts, procrastination doesn't disappear magically, but it loses its power to control you. You've built a framework that is stronger than avoidance. There's one more layer here that's worth unfolding: emotion. Because at its core, procrastination is an emotional regulation problem, not a time management problem. We delay not because we don't know what to do, but because doing it triggers discomfort, fear of failure, fear of imperfection, fear of effort. The 2-minute rule works because it bypasses that emotional barrier. 2 minutes feels too trivial to trigger fear. It's hard for your brain to catastrophize about opening a document or putting on shoes. And by the time you've taken that step, your emotions have shifted. The task no longer feels threatening. You've changed the emotional color of the situation. In this sense, the rule is less about time and more about emotional judo, using the smallest possible action to flip resistance on its back. Let me give you a real-world illustration. Imagine a student who's been avoiding studying for an exam. The thought of reading 3 chapters feels unbearable, so they decide, I'll just open the book and read the first sentence. That's all. No commitment to the whole chapter, no promise of hours of work, just the first sentence. And something surprising happens. They keep going. 1 sentence becomes 1 page becomes 3, and before they know it, they've studied for 45 minutes. Why? Because the hardest battle was never studying, it was starting. By lowering the cost of starting, the 2-minute rule tilts the battle in your favor. And this applies not only to studying, but to fitness, writing, cleaning, communication, every area where avoidance sneaks in. Think also of professionals in high-pressure environments. Many entrepreneurs, doctors, athletes rely on micro-actions to maintain momentum. A surgeon doesn't think, I must finish the whole operation. They think, first incision. A writer doesn't think, I must finish the whole novel. They think, first sentence. A runner doesn't think, I must survive 20 kilometers. They think, first step. The 2-minute rule is simply a codified version of this wisdom. It democratizes it. You don't need to be an elite performer to use it. You just need to ask yourself, what's my first pebble? What's my 2-minute version? And the moment you do, you unlock the same psychology that keeps professionals moving forward even under pressure. At this point, you might wonder, does it really matter if I just take 2 minutes? Isn't that too small to count? But this is the paradox. The smaller the step, the greater the chance of success. And success compounds. When you consistently succeed at starting, you retrain your brain to see yourself as capable. Confidence isn't built from giant wins, it's built from repeated small wins. 2 minutes at a time, you're reshaping your identity. You're no longer someone who avoids, you're someone who begins. And that shift in identity cascades into bigger transformations. Because once you believe you're someone who begins, finishing becomes almost inevitable. Now, let's tie this into a clear mental model you can carry with you. Picture a triangle with 3 layers. At the base, action, the simple 2-minute start. In the middle, momentum, the energy that carries you once you've begun. At the top, identity, the person you become by showing up. Every time you use the 2-minute rule, you climb this triangle. Action creates momentum, momentum reinforces identity, and identity makes future action easier. It's a self-reinforcing loop. And unlike complicated productivity systems that demand discipline to maintain, this loop sustains itself because it aligns with how the brain naturally works. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes, until procrastination is no longer your default setting. So let's bring this home. Think of one thing in your life right now that you've been postponing. Maybe it's sending an important message. Maybe it's starting a fitness habit. Maybe it's cleaning a corner of your space. Right now, ask yourself, what's the 2-minute version of this? And then do it. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait until you feel ready, because readiness is not the cause of action. Action is the cause of readiness. The smallest start is infinitely more valuable than the grandest intention. Here's the truth I want you to carry forward. Procrastination doesn't mean you're broken. It means your brain is protecting you in the wrong way. The 2-minute rule gives you a way to gently retrain that instinct, not through force, not through shame, but through tiny acts of courage. And as those tiny acts accumulate, they build a new story about who you are. A story where you don't avoid life, but meet it step by step, 2 minutes at a time. So here is my invitation to you. Don't just watch this, apply it. Today, right after this video, pick one task you've been avoiding. Ask, what's the 2-minute version? And then do it. That single action will be your first domino, and tomorrow do it again, and the next day. Over time, you'll discover that the gap between you and the person you want to be is not as wide as it felt. It's just a series of 2-minute doors waiting for you to open them. And once you start opening them, momentum will carry you places you never thought you could reach. Because the secret to beating procrastination is not waiting for motivation. It's starting small, starting now, and trusting that the smallest spark can light the largest fire. 2 minutes is all it takes. Your new story begins the moment you begin.